Hello everyone and welcome to The Good Old Gamer. Hope you all have had a great week. Not a lot of huge news stories in the tech space, but we've had a lot of little ones, so this might actually be a little bit of a longer video. We have information that Best Buy is now keeping RTX cards behind a paywall. That's a little strange. We have information about Intel's Arc Alchemist GPUs. That comes from not an Apple fan, our good friend Paul. He's got information about that. We talked about it on yesterday's Techonomics podcast. We'll talk a little bit more about that here today. And we have information that the RTX 3090 is going to be over $4,000, plus many other stories. So that's what we're going to be talking about today in this video. So stick around. But first, I'd like to thank VIP-URcdkey.com for sponsoring today's video and offering you guys an additional 25% off your next Windows 10, Windows 11, or Microsoft Office products. You can go ahead and do so by using promo code GOG25. To take advantage of this special offer, just click the link down in the description below. You'll be taken right to the Windows 10 Pro page that you see here. And it's as simple as clicking Buy Now. Go ahead and add in the promo code GOG25, hit apply. You will see the discount applied right there. Go ahead and submit order. PayPal is my preferred choice for secure online purchasing, so I'm gonna go ahead and use that. So after your order is processed, all you have to do is click View Keys and get instant access to your new product key. So once you have your product key, all you have to do is go to search, type in activate, hit enter, go to change product key, and paste your key code in. It's that simple, and you have full access to all of your Windows features. And as these are legitimate keys, these also work on Windows 11. I tested it myself personally, and you can install Windows 11 from the jump, and these key codes will also work there. You can also save the 25% off also on any of the Microsoft Office suite as well. So take advantage of this exclusive discount by clicking the link down in the description below and using promo code GOG25 here today. All right, so kicking things off, Best Buy puts GeForce RTX 30 series cards behind a paywall. Scalpers rejoice. Okay, so they're not necessarily just putting it behind a paywall, but what Best Buy is doing is they're introducing a $200 a year premium membership called Total Tech, which customers get access to special protection programs, 24/7 tech support, and Apple Core Plus. I think that's Apple Care. I think that's just a typo. But regardless, on its own, that's pretty expensive. However, Total Tech brings access to exclusive Total Tech member prices. So essentially what this is doing is it's going to give people who are members to this either lower prices or early access to these products before they hit the main page where everybody can buy them. Now, this isn't that big of a deal. A lot of places do this. We've seen this happen with PlayStation 5s and other things. It's not the best business practice, but it is a way to entice people to go ahead and get into these programs since a lot of technology is becoming harder and harder to get. The real issue is Best Buy is still the FE card provider. They're the only retailer that sells them for Nvidia. So this does change things a little bit as they are exclusive to this, and it just seems like that they're taking advantage of their position. So personally, I don't like this move. I really wish that they wouldn't give preferential treatment to people, but at the same time, we live in a world where if you pay $200 a year, you should get something for it. So I guess that, for them, they're just taking advantage of the situation. The real problem is not enough supply. Nvidia and AMD, and well, I guess you could say even Intel, we'll talk more about Intel graphics later, but they're just not able to supply the market, and just the lack of competition and competitors out there is the real problem. Best Buy is just a symptom of the problem, in my opinion. Next up, AMD Ryzen 7000 Zen 4/Raphael CPUs could launch already in the third quarter. So we were all expecting the end of the year, maybe, like November-ish, but it seems like Q3 might actually be when they announce these. I highly doubt that these chips will be released in Q3, but it is entirely possible, especially since we know that AMD is not coming out with a full lineup of Zen 3D chips. So that's basically just hey, if you have AM4, here you go. Here's the fastest chip for gaming, at least, on that particular platform. Now, for everybody else, it's time to move on over to AM5 and Zen 4. That's basically what I'm getting out of this. There's not a whole lot of other information there. So personally, I think we might get an announcement September-ish, but more than likely, I think that it'll still launch and be released in Q4, but we will see. It's just going to be a matter of when AMD can get these things out. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But with how expensive things are getting, AMD might be able to charge that premium to get these out faster, and we will talk more about ridiculous pricing in the PC market here in the next few stories. Starting off with the Radeon RX 6950 XT. All right, so there's nothing too crazy here. We've talked about this before. It's still going to be on 7 nanometer. It's just going to have faster RAM and higher clock speeds in TDP. So according to Greymon, the boost seems to be over 2.5 gigahertz. Well, okay. I mean, you know, these things can go very fast anyway, the regular 6900 XTs. So they're going to have to push these really, really hard. The biggest thing is going to be the additional TDP going all the way up to 350 watts, which is even beyond the liquid-cooled variant. More than likely, it's going to be the same because the liquid cooling keeps temperatures down, which means power draw also is a little bit lower than an air-cooled part. So I'd say it's basically going to be the same. This card isn't that big of a deal, but I think the price tag on this is going to be a little ridiculous. So speaking of ridiculous price tags, jumping on over, Palette lists the GeForce RTX 3090 Ti Game Rock on its website, and Asus 3090 Ti spotted with a $4,300 plus euro pricing. All right, so as we can see here, this is from somewhere in Europe. I'm guessing German, maybe? I don't know. I don't read whatever language it says. But anyways, Asus ROG Strix liquid-cooled 3090 Ti 24 gigabyte. That's coming in at almost 4,600 euros. And then you have the Asus TUF RTX 3090 Ti OC 24 gigabyte gaming coming in at 4,400. And then the Asus TUF 3090 Ti 24 gig gaming coming in at 4,330 basically. So these price points are much, much higher than what a lot of people were anticipating for this card. I personally thought it would have a realistic MSRP of $19.99, but it seems like Nvidia is getting rid of MSRPs. If you haven't seen any of my previous videos talking about that, this is a real problem if Nvidia can just put out a card and allow AIBs to just charge whatever they want. Prices are just going to get astronomical, as we're seeing here right now. Personally, I've told you guys for a while, they're going to shoot for $5,000 consumer-grade graphics cards. I just simply didn't think we'd be seeing them this early. I figured it'd be next generation at the very earliest. But hey, we're almost there already. So that's pretty crazy. If you think that's nuts, let's check this out. MSI NEW Z690 Godlike Enthusiast Motherboard now available for $2,099. This is a motherboard. This isn't even an HEDT motherboard. Now, I like Z690 because it's kind of like in between consumer grade and HEDT. It's got a lot more I/O, but you don't even get the I/O. Look at this. This is just a bunch of NVMEs in here. I'd want all these slots plus NVMEs. Personally, this thing is obviously nuts, but we now live in a world. You have to sit down and think about this. MSI believes that we live in a world where over $2,000 for a consumer grade motherboard is acceptable, and they wouldn't be making this if they didn't believe that they would sell. Now, granted, there's probably not going to be a lot of these, but still, they expect to sell out of however many they've made. So the world that we used to live in, where, you know, $150 was pretty normal for a motherboard, $100 was cheap, $200 was high end, and $300 was crazy, is now completely gone. So this just goes to show that old school pricing is no longer relevant in this world. Now, this one does not pertain to pricing per se, but Nvidia Hopper GPU rumored to feature 140 billion transistors. Now, Paul and I talked about this on yesterday's Techonomics podcast, and we will likely talk about it tomorrow. So if you haven't subscribed, click the link down in the description below and chat with us over there. We love talking with you guys. We talk about this stuff twice a week, and yeah, so we've already kind of had a chat about this. The numbers do line up, and it does seem possible on TSMC's 5 nanometer process, or at least darn close to it. The main reason why I wanted to bring this one up, obviously this is not going to be a gaming card, this is for enterprise, but it does show how dense the next generation cards are going to be compared to this generation. Paul did a great video, and he broke it down. Essentially, the Samsung 8nm process per millimeter squared, you can get about 80 million transistors, or 60 million rather. And on the 5nm, I believe it was 280 million transistors. So that's significantly more dense. So if Nvidia does decide to go with TSMC's 5nm for their next generation Lovelace gaming GPUs, you could be looking at 3.5 times the transistor density, which will translate into extreme performance gains. Even going to Samsung's 5nm, I believe it's still double the transistor density. So we're going to see much, much, much faster graphics cards coming out next generation. This just happens to be the first one that they're talking about, showing the 140 billion transistor count. And now swinging things all the way in the other direction, instead of talking about big, massive, ginormous, expensive things, we have the AMD-powered SteamDeck. It's now out there. There's videos. You can check out Linus Tech Tips, Gamers Nexus. We have some pictures here of the actual SoC. They have the Valve branding directly on there. And this has come out pretty good. Everybody seems to really like this device that has tested it so far. And I personally think that this is great. This is an excellent way to get into PC gaming at a reasonably affordable price. The big question is going to be his availability. Did Valve understand that they're going to need tens of millions of these? Or did they say, hey, let's just order, I don't know, 100,000, see how it goes? Especially considering price point of $399 may no longer be doable with the price hikes and everything out there if they haven't already secured their supply for them. So I'm a little worried about supply on these, but regardless, it's a cool little device. But not everybody is happy about this little guy. Some people are very, very upset by this. All right, so Celso sent this over to me the other day. This is from Tech Deals talking about the Steam Deck. And he said, my single biggest problem with the Steam Deck is it runs the risk of rewinding the past 10 years of hardware development. If PC games actually get optimized for this, then why did we bother getting better computers? 720p 30 FPS, 10-year-old PCs can do that. So I wanted to start off the chat and give you guys my opinion and take on that particular quote there. There are a lot of people out there in the PC gaming community that are buying $2,000 motherboards now, $2,000 RAM, $4,000 or $5,000 GPUs. These people are now getting mad because not everybody wants to spend that kind of money to play video games primarily. And they're okay with getting something that's $399 or whatever. That will do the thing that they want in a reasonable enough manner. So people are getting upset because other people are happy with maybe 720p 30, 720p 60, whatever, just lower end specs on hardware and lower end configurations. Now, this is where we're at, guys. The prices on the elite side, the super high end, is getting so high, these people are getting mad that people can play games, the same games, get the same enjoyment, because the game doesn't really get better. It might control a little bit better, it might look a little nicer, but the game's still the game, regardless of your resolution and regardless of your frame rate, as long as it's over 30. Try playing under 30, that's a bit rough. But regardless, they're getting mad that people are okay with that. They're like, I'll sacrifice, the frame rate or visual fidelity to save a crap ton of money. And these elitists are just getting pissed off because they're getting squeezed for more and more and more and more money. And we're starting to see this becoming a problem. And there's really only one solution that I can see for this. Either these people have to understand that they're throwing money away unnecessarily. Just, hey, I'm spending 5 times more than I should on a thing, and, that's okay. I have the money to burn. That's the proper way to approach that. But if it's like, I spent 5 times the money on this, I want 5 times better everything, and I don't want other people being able to play these games. Essentially what I'm getting out of this is they want the exclusivity. I only want somebody with a $5,000 or $10,000 machine or more to be able to play these games. This isn't going to happen. That's never going to be the case. And the most popular games in the world run on mobile phones. Consoles aren't even entry level. That's not even the baseline spec anymore. It's your phone. So anything that's as fast as your phone should be able to run the majority of the most popular games that are coming out. Anybody who wants to make a free-to-play or a multiplayer game, if it doesn't run on an Android phone, you're not going to be very successful. This is the reason why things like Battlefield are falling away. Call of Duty got smart and moved over that direction. They're doing really well. Ever since I saw Fortnite running on a smartphone, I knew that's the new baseline in terms of spec. And the Steam Deck is going to be able to handle all of those games perfectly. So those are going to be the most popular games in the world. So if you spend $4,000 or $5,000 on a graphics card or $2,000 on a motherboard to play the same games that people are playing on their phone or their Steam Decks or Nintendo Switch or whatever, that's your call. You have to understand that you're going to have higher frame rates. You're going to have you could run 4K or 8K or some sort of crazy thing that those machines can't do. But that's all you get. You get no other benefit. It's not a different game. It's not a better game. It's just the same game with some extra niceties added on top. And you have to be okay with spending absurd amounts of money for very little increases in terms of overall gameplay additives there. So in my opinion, the PCMR, the super elite guys that are all about this, and Tech Deals has been pretty egregious about telling people like anything below a 12,700 can't play games or something like that. I don't really follow him. It just comes up a lot on the Techonomics podcast. You guys bring it up a lot. And I'm just like, who says this? This doesn't make any sort of sense. 12,100 is more than enough to play all the games that are out there right now. But regardless, it's just getting kind of crazy. And this is the reason why companies are charging so much for these things, because there's I guess there's a large enough portion of the market that think that way and feel that way. And these are the guys that are really destroying basically the whole thing. They're breaking the PC gaming community in half, especially when they go after the guys that are like, no, I'm going to stick on the low end. It's fine. I'll play 720p low. That's fine. A lot of people don't have a problem with that. Now, switching things around, I personally like the Steam Deck. I've talked to you guys about this before. I would like to get one, but I'm more on the boat where if I can't go to the store and just pick it up off the shelf, there's no point in me talking about it. It's like when I got the Aya Neo, I didn't do a lot of content on it because you can't just go out there and buy it. You have to wait months and months and months, and it shows up and it does the thing until you can just go to Best Buy or Walmart, maybe not Best Buy after this video, but go to Walmart or whatever and just pick it up, put it in a cart and take it home with you. I just don't see the point in really talking about it. Basically, it needs to be as ubiquitous as like a Nintendo Switch, which you can buy pretty much anywhere. But what I really would like to see is basically the opposite of what Tech Deals is saying. I want to see more games optimized for these lower end systems. We already know that indie games basically target this level of hardware and they run fine. We also know that indie games are basically the best games coming out right now. So there's almost no real reason to have super high-end hardware, as AAA games just aren't very good. And they take years and years and years of patches and updates to even get anywhere halfway decent. So if you're basically just wanting to play good games, which are mostly indie or esports or stuff that doesn't require a lot, I personally hope we see a surge of devices like this. And things kind of like the Alienware Alpha would be great for people that don't want the portability, but want like a small form factor, something that doesn't take up a lot of power, it still be quiet and everything. I really love the form factor of these. I've had, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 of these things over the years. I buy them, I play with them, I like them, and then, I need a couple bucks. So it's kind of low on my totem pole of something that I keep around. So I get rid of them. They're easy to sell, but people like that form factor. I personally like it because you can carry it with you and do a bunch of things. I would like to see things like this using the same APU that we see in the Steam Deck, or maybe something a little bit faster, maybe the Ryzen 6000 series APUs. Those would be really, really cool in this type of form factor where you can have higher power limits and things like that because you have better cooling. That's the reason why I prefer something like this over like a portable device or even a laptop. I don't really like laptops because they're just not thick enough. You need at least 2 or 3 inches of thickness to get proper cooling, in my opinion, because I like silent operations, but I would like to see that market starting to thrive. The real issue is that AMD is the only one producing the APUs capable enough for this, and they're already supplying the whole console market, and we know that they're very supply constrained. So if we had like Lenovo, Dell, or any of these guys coming out with let's say an Alienware Alpha or a Steam Deck type competitor, I don't know if AMD has the capacity to supply the world with these devices. It's really going to come down to Intel to go ahead and get their drivers and stuff up to snuff and actually be able to provide high quality integrated graphics that would compete with AMD. Now, speaking with Intel, I don't have any slides. We don't have anything over here. I think Paul put it on Twitter, but he got some inside information and he revealed it yesterday. We did talk about it on the podcast, as I mentioned. The Intel Arc Alchemists, he knows a guy who's got one, and he did some preliminary benchmarks. Now, it's not looking all that great. Overall, right now, we're seeing basically 5700 XT level performance, or I guess you can say maybe 2070 Super, somewhere around there. So, I mean, it's not terrible. It's just not as good as we were thinking. Now, the real issue is the Intel graphics drivers. I've talked about this before using the UHD 730 that I have in my i5-11400. Just black screens whenever I play any game. Doesn't matter the API, doesn't matter. It just goes to a black screen. You can't tab out of it. You can't do anything. Just basically locks up the thing. Intel's drivers basically don't work on Alchemist right now. Anytime the guy used RT, any game that's using ray tracing, it would do the same thing. It would just go to a black screen. Now, obviously, it was working in regular rasterized games. However, he got a lot of graphical glitches and issues there. So it's very clear that that is the main issue. That is probably also where the lack of expected performance is coming from, and may not even be fixed by the time we go ahead and get these. And personally, it sounds like they're 6 to 12 months away from getting this sorted. Driver issues of this magnitude are not easy to sort out. And personally, I don't know if we're even going to get Alchemist on the desktop, because if it's not out by next year, there's just no point in the card. They'll just launch Battle Mage with the updated and corrected drivers. So things just aren't looking too good on the Intel side, and relying on AMD to feed this new emerging market, it's just not going to work. Or I could be wrong. Maybe AMD has upped their capacity significantly, like 5 to 10-fold what they've been doing over the past few years. And then they might have the capacity to actually satiate these new markets that I think a lot of people are going to get into. As I mentioned, a lot of the AAA games just aren't really worth it. I know a lot of you guys aren't that interested in them anymore, not the new ones anyway. You'll just play some old ones, or you guys like indies or esports or multiplayer type of games. And those are just far more popular, and those will run on lower end hardware. And I think that that's going to be where a lot of the PC gaming market goes to, is just the super cheap $400 on down for a complete system, basically console price PCs moving forward. Because like I said, $2,000 motherboards, it's a thing. Why? Why is it a thing? It is. I don't know. You know, $4,000 or $5,000 graphics cards, it's going to be a thing. And we can even see on the low end, you get $300 6500 XTs, which are just complete junk. I mean, I would rather spend $100 more and get a complete system with half of the performance, but at the very least, it does all the things that I want. And I think a lot of people are in that boat. So I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this. Obviously, I'm very opinionated. I'm going to be talking about this more tomorrow with Paul, and we're going to try to get a guest on. Not going to say for sure if we're going to have one. It's still up in the air, but we'll try to have somebody else join us in this conversation. So if you want to join as well, click the link down in the description below. Make sure you subscribe over at the Techonomics Podcast. Like I said, twice a week, Paul and I chat about all this stuff, and we like to hear from you guys directly over there. So speaking about older games or indie games, I wanted to leave you guys with this one if you're looking for something to play. All right, so jumping on over here to GOG, Power Slave Exhumed. This just came out. This is an old school first-person shooter back from 1996, I believe it came out. And it came out on the Sega Saturn, PC, and PlayStation. And all three versions were different. So the good guys over at Night Dive Studio, they went ahead and took the best elements from all three and combined them into this new remaster. So personally, I'm going to go ahead and play the crap out of this. I liked the Power Slave EX, which was kind of the community version of this that came out a few years ago. But now you can just download the game. You don't have to tweak anything. There was a lot of weird things you had to do to get it running. You don't have to do any of that anymore. You can just pick up the game and play. And this is more interesting than your traditional first-person shooter because it adds Metroidvania-like elements to it. So if you like first-person shooters, but you also like more like adventure games, I would definitely recommend checking this guy out. Well, alrighty, guys, that'll do it for me on this one. Hope you guys have a great weekend. I will see you on Monday or tomorrow if you join on the podcast. So, alrighty, guys, that's all I have for you here today, and I will catch you guys in the next video.